The animal was few feet away. I pushed a button in the radio simulator and the animal really stopped. If electrodes implanted in animals are possible, can we implant electrodes in the human brain?
Civilian citizens dedicated to exposing domestic and international terrorism. Hello, everyone. I'm Jesse Beltran, your host of ISA Act Radio, the International Center Against the Abuse of Covert Technologies. I'm from the United States, and along as your co-host is Lars Drudgaard of Denmark. We are honored to be participating in the United We Win Marathon Weekend, emphasizing all to don't buy, don't comply, standing up against the institutions of corruption and oppression. So hello, welcome back, ISA Act listeners and United We Win, United We Strike. Welcome to 2013. This is Jesse Beltran and my host Lars Drudgaard. What we'd like to do in this show is to go back and do a precursor on what the accomplishments were in 2012 and then explain what it is we're striving to achieve in 2013. I guess we can start off with the preliminary scanning of victims throughout the United States and Europe and abroad to demonstrate and show in an objective manner how, for whatever reason, there is a detection of radio frequency emissions on certain individuals. And the question would be, how come it's not on all individuals? And these individuals who are coming up positive in the preliminary scan have specific type symptoms, and these victims complain about being terrorized and basically essentially being exposed to domestic and international terrorism through the use of technologies that are being implemented in a very inhumane way and completely destroying lives, and in some cases taking lives. That being said, we would like to pay our respects to those who have lost their lives, who were victims in 2012. A couple of names to bring forth is Sean Sten, a physicist, student, and major out of the United States. Alva Anderson, another person who has fell victim to this horrific type of crime, and all those others who have either suddenly and unexplainably lost their lives or have taken them. To that, we pay homage, and we will continue the fight, and we'll ensure that your names will not go away in vain. In fact, those will be the stimulus to push our efforts forward with vigor and with determination that will be unyielding, and we will succeed. That is our stance. Along with the preliminary scanning in 2012, we entered into phase 3, which was testing in a controlled environment, and with the help of many people, and particularly some very influential personalities within the European territories, specifically in Belgium. We thank you for that opportunity. The results were quite striking, and we are very cautiously looking at that data, and we want to make sure that everything is done correctly. And we will continue the phase 3 testing within the United States. Along with that, we had Lars Drudgaard, who had some very great opportunities. Those opportunities were he had been invited to give lectures Norway and in Denmark, and maybe Lars, you can recap those.
Yes, I was invited to give a lecture on remote influencing technology, which is what we're all about, in Denmark at an Open Mind conference, together with Dr. Barry Trower and a lot of other famous speakers. And that was a huge success. And as a follow-up, I was invited to Norway to give the same lecture at an Open Mind conference in Norway. And later on I did one more in Denmark. And the lectures are currently available as DVDs or live stream at a webpage called golivenow.net. They do charge people for those, but I think you will find a lot of interesting. There are 2 lectures by Dr. Barry Trower. There's my lecture, and there is a lot of other interesting stuff Birgitta Jonsdottir from the Icelandic Parliament speaking about how our freedoms are taken away. And also there's lectures by Bill Still on the economic situation in Iron R. Crane and others. And it's definitely worthwhile going there. So it's go live now, net.
Yeah, some of the great things that happened was the Barry Trower, Lars. You also had the opportunity to interview him at his residence, and he gave some very wonderful insight from his background being in the microwave weaponry field and being a leader and an expert in this, and basically gave the script. He explains in detail specifically how and why they would use this against someone, a specific group, whether it be protesters, where it be someone who is a whistleblower, or just to use the technologies as experimentation on unsuspecting innocent victims. And this is what the International Center Against the Abuse of Technologies, ISAC.org, is about. We completely and wholeheartedly are against any of this type of technology being utilized for the purposes of torture or non-consensual experimentation, without having a choice, without allowing the free will, our God-given right as a human being, to be used in the way that we choose to. And that's what we stand for. Mm-hmm. And Lars, recently, Magnus Olsson, who is a Harvard grad, who is an outspoken and well-publicized victim of remote influencing technologies, and who has gone through the preliminary scan, who came up positive in London, and then also was able to participate in the phase 3 testing in Europe. He a lecture recently, and maybe you can talk about where that was, and then we can lead in, and he'll be our special guest today, and we'll bring Magnus on, and we can talk about what was discussed. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think he gave the lecture in Stockholm, in the capital of Sweden. And I would actually like to hear what Magnus has to say about it. Are you with us, Magnus?
Yes, I'm with you. About my lecture, I was asked to hold a lecture in this frightening subject. And of course I said yes. There was a quite big group that were very interested. Even professors was attending. And they listened to my lecture and are participating in the future to help us to get clear with all of this technical stuff to prove our situations. And the lecture was very well. It was very, very big success because there has been a lot of people contacting me about the other lectures after that one.
Sounds great. Magnus, can you explain, how did you get the support? How did this opportunity come about?
There is different group in Sweden that cares. They really showed that they care and they would like to do something about it. So that's my answer.
Okay, great. I did see the lecture, and you did a spectacular job. There are some things that really came to heart, and some terminologies that I've never heard used before, but I've heard you use the word psycho-designed. Can you explain what that is and how you came about the knowledge of this?
As we all know, when you have an implant, it's a two-direction implant. It sends and it transmits the waves, and it's all about the brain signal processing system that are decoded and displayed both visually and in graphic design directly from your cortex connection. And there is also a very interesting feature in this, because in my case they can give me stimuli in different part of the brain, and it feels a little bit like a heat sensation, and you can really get memories flowing with different kind of stimuli. So they can go and pick up my long-term memory. They can also short-time memory. They can evoke different kind of situations, and they can induce different kind of stimulus in different situations. And if you are feeling sad or having a depression, you can easily fix that with the stimuli. It's called transcranial overstimuli. And there is a big company from Israel. They actually have a conglomerate in Europe represented almost in all science departments and universities. And they are developing this psychodesign stimuli so you can live your life without getting depression or feeling too much anger or whatever is specified for the special design for you, so to speak. The brain scientists stated that 1/3 of the whole population in Europe suffer from some kind of mental disorder. And this could definitely help. So they are developing this overstimuli package. I believe they will commercialize it sooner or later. At the same time, you have the Cordis program in Europe, in the 7th framework program, where you have a project called Guardian Angels. And that one is very interesting because here you have an implant from your birth to your death. And in different kind of complex and hard and tough situations in life, you can get the support by the artificial intelligence and through the voice to skull or synthetic telepathy technology. So you can also get answers of all of your questions directly because the artificial intelligence is so over intelligence. It can almost answer in any kind of different type of tough situation you happen to be part of in your life. That's what they write as their story to develop this.
Now, I hear you saying a lot of positive uses for this type of technology. Now, is it your experience that it's always been positive, or are there negative aspects of this? Yeah.
Now I'm coming to that. To actually map demographically all over the world the different kind of cultures you have, you need to do this horrific experiments to just create hard and tough situations that I mean, so they can study their trauma. The trauma that they create, artificial trauma sometimes, and sometimes you happen to be in a real trauma because of the experimenters and the handlers and the artificial intelligence that actually put you in very tough situations. And that's how they, in the framework program, they mentioned that to study a trauma, you have to create it. You can't just of luck trying to reach a trauma in some way. They have, and that's the military's aspect. And they spoke about this on their own web pages. But when I took it and I presented it on my web pages, actually the Swedish military took them away because they are actually sponsoring the biggest neuro department in Sweden is in Karolinska Institutet, and 70% of it is run by the military.
Yeah, in your lecture, I'm gonna refer everyone to see the entire lecture. We're gonna put up the web link, the URL, so they can see your whole lecture. Our program is only 22 minutes today, but they can also reference to your URL. I wanted to also ask, you spoke about Jose Delgado in 1967, about an article in the New York Times. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were discussing in your lecture about Jose Delgado?
Jose Delgado, he made one very famous experiment that he put an implant into a bull, made the bull angry in a situation that it was trapped and tried to attack a human being. And when the bull was running towards this person, he actually just pressed the button. The reaction was that the bull just stopped and turned around. And this experiment is just to show how powerful this transmission is. In my case, for example, the transmission is definitely not in that way strong, but in the subliminal way, it's very strong. So they are working. And when Delgado was speaking about testing and doing experiments on humans, he got very quiet. He didn't want to speak about it at all. And at the time with the CIA, he didn't want to speak anything about. He said one thing, and that was, is the transmission stronger than the human will, we will have a problem. That was his statement.
When I went to Norway and gave my lecture there, that's the great thing about lectures, is that you meet up with people physically and you get a lot of new contacts. Like you've met professors and I met a lot of scientists who are going to look into this on our behalf. And I also met a couple of victims, and one of the victims forwarded a Norwegian documentary on those implant technologies from the 60s. And we're going to have that on our webpage soon. And in this Norwegian documentary about a neuroscience researcher who is doing research for the US military in Norway, there was also a section with the engineer, electronics engineer, who developed all the implants for Jose Delgado. And he also developed some of the implants for this Norwegian researcher, and that were much more sophisticated.
Yes, the Norwegian guy's name is Dr. Jacobsen, and he was way ahead of Mr. Delgado. He joined the CIA in a very early stage. He is one of the few non-Americans that actually got a very high rank in the military.
Yeah.
He also could actually require a different kind of, for example, if he wanted to fly somewhere or fly in some people, he could use the military for free, so to speak. And he got as much money as he needed.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
he said straightforward that he made implants in people who didn't know that they were implanted.
That's exactly right. And he was not in the CIA directly. He was in the precursor of the CIA called the OSS. And after the war, he came to the US, where he became a neurosurgeon and expert in those fields. And he did a lot of research for the CIA and the military, the Air Force, etc. in Norway, because they could do it without consent. He also did a lot of experimentation with the US astronauts, the pilots of all of the U-2 spy planes, etc. So it's a very, very interesting documentary.
It's interesting that you bring up the utilization of this technology with the United States astronauts. I had a discussion with Dr. John Hall recently, within the last week, and he specifically addressed with the experts that he has been speaking to that they did use this type of technology. Where Magnus describes the synthetic telepathy, the terminology that Dr. Hall was told to describe this is that they called it the bone phone. So basically where you can transmit sound through bone conduction. And this was specifically used to help communicate with certain people when they were up there in space. So it is interesting that that subject matter was touched on here.
It's very interesting because one of the first astronauts, Senator Glenn, he actually knows a lot about this technology and tried to get this question up. Yep. But he also said that this implant could be mixed up in medicine. And he said that the free human will must stop this.
Yeah. He was one of the very outspoken politicians in the US against this technology.
Yeah.
So Magnus, what do you believe, or what would you like to see happen with regards to the way the technology is being implemented now? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
This is a horrific way that we're running too fast, and the technology is getting too advanced, and people are not actually thinking of the consequences. And I believe that this non-agreed implementation of this kind of system with the implants and so on, it can end up in a dystopia like 1984 or that Orwell wrote. Mm-hmm. I mean, that the thought police is already here, and the military is showing a pattern that is destructive, and people are falling down. Too many people are dying out there because of this kind of experimentation. So I believe 2013 should be the year of their destruction, because this has started up in the completely wrong direction, and it's impossible to avoid the situations that are going to appear soon. Sooner or later, we'll have a judgment day, and this technology probably will be completely forbidden to use.
I agree. Basically, what we're faced with now is this has been forced upon people, and it basically has really challenged. It has brought forth a conflict, a war against the human free will. And I think most those who believe in a higher power, whether you call it religion or you believe that there is an ultimate creator, most would say that this is the gift to choose right from wrong. And I think those who will be judged against the things that they are doing to innocent people, that being the torture, that being forcing this upon someone without their consent, and ultimately the countless murders that we know have been caused by being victimized to this. We have, Lars and I, through ISAHAC, have seen the suffering. I've seen it throughout the United States. We see it through Europe. We get called constantly, just like you, Magnus, and inquired about this because people are suffering on a daily basis, and it's all demographics. Age is no matter, race is no matter, age is no matter. It's just horrific. And 2013 should be the day that these people, these terrorists, get held accountable.
Yeah.
Lars?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Just to our listeners, Magnus, because of the short time, I would like to invite you back, if you're willing, to discuss the conclusion of your lecture, because part 1 and part 2, I believe, were made into one presentation. And I think it's important that our listeners hear the conclusion and what the results were and hopefully where we're going. Would you be willing to do that?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, ISAHAC will continue to expound on Phase 3. We will now be doing Phase 3 here in the United States. We will also, through the help of the physicians who support us, we will also be implementing some new type of testing with regards to EEGs. And then again, the expansion of ISAHAC will be our focus here in 2013.
Yeah, I just want to thank our media production chief and webmaster as well, Carmen Lupin, for doing the translation of the Magnus Olsson's lecture. And it's of course it can be viewed on our webpage, isaac.org, and on Magnus Olsson's own webpage, mindcontrol.se.
Yes, and most of all, we'd like to thank you, Magnus, for taking the time of your busy schedule to come on our show. All of the listeners are very grateful, and all of the supporters and victims are very grateful for you being proactive and taking a stance against this. That being said, we'd like to thank Karen and all of those who help in this production of United We Win, United We Strike. Just take the time to seek the truth and be a truth seeker. I think that's the ultimate, and that may be the Holy Grail truth. So until next time, thank you for tuning in.